Good morning, namaste and vanakkam.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning,
Good
sir.
morning,
Thank
sir.
you.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. So may we have the diagram, the visual representation? Okay. You can take it to the top of the file, top of the diagram. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, fine. So let's have a quick review of our discussions yesterday. Will any friend out there begin? At least the main points, please. Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
please. Let's have a quick review and continue. Please. Go ahead.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hi.
Sir, yesterday we talked about upper part of this diagram, which is
Yes.
related to long-term objectives.
Yeah,
Then
top
first we talk
top
about, yes, sir,
top
top
man.
management.
Yeah,
Yes,
fine.
sir.
Yeah.
Then first we start with right part of the distinctive competence, which is related to the strength of SWOT analysis, uh,
Correct.
like technology and skills and others,
Yeah,
uh,
resources.
resources, human resources.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to add, don't forget this diagram is quite old because it must have been made in the late 70s or early 80s. We've come a long way. That's why the set of resources may not be full there. So we talked of distinct competencies. Actually, it is distinct competencies and capabilities. Okay. In our discussions, you can use, in addition to competencies, you can also use capabilities. So all the resources will come there. Continue.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Then we talk about left part of the top management, like public needs and business opportunities,
Very good.
which is related to long-term objectives and which alter the objectives. All the public needs may not converted into business opportunities.
Yes.
When then we little talk about examples of that.
Okay.
Uh, uh, then we talk about pestle analysis,
Yes.
uh, which is political, economical, social, and technological, environmental, and legal.
Yes.
Perspective, which defines the perspective planning and
Yes.
differ the which is important for forecasting.
Yes.
Then we talk about long-term objectives and policies which are interrelated
Yes.
and differ p- uh, both ways.
They
Then
interact. I mean, there is a two-way
yes, sir,
interaction.
interact. Yes, sir,
Okay.
two-way interaction.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Anything
Uh,
else?
then we talk about, sir, strategy and policy both are dynamic in
Okay,
nature.
good,
Yes, sir.
good. That was a good review. Now we can scroll down a bit. Yeah, yes, that's it. Perfect. Now you see that there are broadly three policies that we are concerned with: the marketing policy, the finance policy, and the operations policy. I mean, this is a generic representation, a graphical representation, a visual representation of the total operations system, starting from top management going down to the work level. Okay. In this picture, as I pointed out yesterday, the author has identified three levels: top management, operations management, and the work level. Okay. Although I may not completely agree with the labels, but it's all right. It's not too bad. I mean, it's not very wrong. Okay? And there are some correct aspects in the representation. Now, the forecasting is a very critical input to the company, to the organization. Okay. Now, this can conform to both product organizations as well as service organizations, or product centric organizations or service centric organizations. Okay. Both this will apply. For our purposes, we will consider product-centric organizations which are producing manufacturing products. Okay? So the value addition process involves manufacturing, material removal or addition, if you want to put it that way. And of course, material removal, addition, and of course, combination of parts, components, assemblies, and all that stuff, which we have seen much earlier: system, subsystem, module, unit. You may remember that: assembly, component, and part. Now, the forecast itself has three components, as you can see from the diagram. The first component is the long-term forecast, typically 2 to 10 years ahead. What you may even call as a perspective giving forecast, a forecast that provides a perspective to the company. That means you're really looking into the long-term future where the uncertainty levels are incredibly high. And then it comes into a medium-term forecast, which is 2 to 24 months, where the uncertainty levels are relatively lower. Not that uncertainty doesn't exist. Uncertainty exists even in the short term, but we are only talking of a relative order of intensity or implications of the uncertainty. In the case of the long-term forecast, we all know that we have to have some confidence in the forecast based on the logic used, the scenarios that would have been developed. Okay. Likewise for the other two, the medium-term forecast and the short-term forecast. But how do we use the information, the forecasting information? Okay. Now you may ask a question, do companies have a forecasting unit? The answer is yes and no. Yes, in the sense that forecasts are the bread and butter of much of a company's operations. Okay. So they will do much better with reasonably good forecasts. But whether the forecasts are reasonable or not is a different question. And there may not be a single unit, a forecasting unit, but it may be done across departments, and then the integration might take place in their meetings, the internal meetings of the company. Okay. Obviously, the board of directors will also have a say in the use of the forecast, and in helping the company with its dynamic strategy. Okay. Here you must understand, from strategy literature, we identify two types of capabilities that companies possess. One is called operational capabilities, and the other is called dynamic capabilities. Typically, operational capabilities involve those resources and their capabilities that are completely or almost completely within the control of the company. Whereas dynamic capabilities refer to the situation of the company's interface and its relationships with its partners in the environment or entities in the environment and those within. Okay. So that's why the dynamism comes in. I hope you understand why. Because the changes outside the company are not directly controllable by a company. Okay. The company can only indirectly work with the changes that are made by entities outside. It may be the government, it may be a supply chain partner, it may be a competitor, or it may simply be customer behavior which can change due to various reasons. It may be seasonal, seasonal may not be a perfect example because it's quite predictable, but what sometimes people call as business cycles, which are more long term, which are not absolutely predictable, but the people can have an idea of how business cycles can happen, something going up and coming down and so on. Okay. So the dynamic capabilities of a company refer to those capabilities which enable the company to dynamically alter its work and configuration, structure, etc., in response to and also to drive the entities in the environment and their inputs. Okay. So entities outside, entities in the environment will send some signals to the company. The company responds. The other is company itself, in anticipation of certain changes or to design certain changes to ensure some changes happen in the environment, could make some alterations within and try to cause those changes in the environment. So those are dynamic capabilities. So these two are very important, and forecasts become an important component in a company's work with its own dynamic capabilities and operational capabilities. Okay. So I hope you got the difference between dynamic capabilities and operational capabilities. If you are interested, you can look at the literature. I mean, there is a whole list of what these dynamic capabilities are and a list of what these operational capabilities are specifically. Okay. Now we will look at how these three components of forecast are used by a company. Okay. How does a company use the long-term forecast? The long-term forecast information is used for system design, as you can see. That's on your right. Now we are discussing below the dashed line. Okay. Now you will also notice something very interesting. Okay. The dashed line has in its middle operations policy, part of which is in top management and part of which is in the operational management. I hope you're able to see that, So the operations policy is bang in the middle of that dashed line. Similarly, forecasting also. Okay. And I think the diagram itself should clearly explain why it is so. Okay. This diagram has taken an operations-centric perspective. I'm confident that good management students would also be able to present such a diagram with a marketing-centric perspective or with a finance-centric perspective. I hope you understand this, So here we take an operations-centric perspective. So operations policies bang across the top management and the operations management. Okay. So the long-term forecast goes into system design. Now, what do you mean by system design? As we just made an assumption a little while ago that we will take the manufacturing context in our discussions here, not necessarily the service context, although one can adapt the discussions to the service context. Okay, we'll focus on the manufacturing context and then see and try to understand what is system design. Okay, so what system are we talking about here? I would like you to tell me. What does your intelligence tell you? Which system are we referring to here? Quickly. Yeah, please.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, manufacturing system.
Very correct. We are referring to the manufacturing system. Okay, now let's start visualizing in our own minds. I'm sure all of you will have unique mental models, but there'll be a large intersection in what you're saying. So what constitutes a manufacturing system? What do you think in your mind? What can you visualize? What would a manufacturing system look like? Remember, a system will have both physical components and non-physical components. You may call that as conceptual components. Okay. So what physical components do you visualize in a manufacturing system?
Machines.
Absolutely. Machines.
Raw material.
Materials. Very good.
Finished good.
Okay, finished goods. You're going into the value addition itself. Very good. Then.
So infrastructure.
Very good. What is that infrastructure?
So land resource and the.
Okay, the space. Okay,
yes,
then.
Sir. And the machines.
Yeah, machines has been mentioned already. Go ahead, Akhilesh. You're thinking well.
Skills and technology.
No, that
skilled person.
Yeah, that's correct. But that you will not put it in infrastructure, Akhilesh.
Yes, sir.
I was wanting you to expand on infrastructure, on the term infrastructure. You began correctly. The spatial infrastructure. What else?
Electricity.
Absolutely. The power systems and so on. Yeah. So that's exactly what we are talking of. So you have machines, you have equipment, you have instruments, you have tools, so many things constitute the physical part. Even people are the physical part. The workmen, the machinists, the maintenance crew, all these people constitute a part of the management, part of the system, the manufacturing system. Okay. including all the infrastructure that we talked about. Okay. Now, what do you mean by system design now? What do you mean by designing the system using the long-term forecast? Think. Now, this is the good part, the value of this diagram, where the diagram presents an essence, and we are attempting to go beyond the essence by elaborating upon it. Okay. So, what do we understand by designing this manufacturing system? What do you understand? I've already told you guys, you know the answer. It's just that you have to search within and come out with the answer.
Hello, sir.
Yep, please.
Sir, based on the long-term forecast, we will
Yes.
decide how much machines we need, how many laborers
Very
we need,
good.
how much
Very
electricity we
good.
need.
What is in fact, this is where the connection with finance also comes in. What should be our investment in establishing the manufacturing system? Correct?
Yes, sir.
Correct. So, as I think it was Dushyant who mentioned that, that's very correct. We're looking at how many machines, what type of machines, but what is the basis for deciding the number of machines? We'll start with number of machines. But also number of people, the total power you need, etc. All these things will go into system design. There are some things more also, where to site, where to locate the factory, and so on, which are very important decisions in the whole thing called system design. Facility location is a major area in operations management. So we talk of facility location and facility layout. What do you think are the differences between locating something and laying out something? Come on.
Sir, in layout, machine are arranged in a
Very good.
manufacturing process.
Very correct, Ajay. That is, within a given space, how you arrange the machines is a layout issue. Location?
It refers to site selection, sir.
Yeah, it involves site selection. Correct, Mohan Raj. Okay. Location involves the site itself. Where am I going to locate the entire facility? Now, those are big decisions. Please understand, they are big decisions involving long-term implications for the company. I hope you agree. There are many long-term implications. Proximity to supply chain partners, stability, political stability of the place where you're siting. Please understand, without naming any state in India, you know that there are one or two states in India which after independence somewhere went down the path in industry. In fact, many industrial and business organizations moved out of those states for various reasons. Are you understanding? And we even have a fairly recent case, I would say at least a few years ago, where a big facility which was supposed to be located somewhere was forced to move out of the state, isn't it? So all these things happen. Now, we are not talking about who is right, who is wrong. That's not our interest. We are looking at the phenomenon. There was a phenomenon where there was a very large investment by a very big company in India in a particular location, and then there was some issue between the state government and the company, or whatever the issues may have been, and the company was forced to move to another state, isn't it? And please understand, a lot of money goes into this. Okay? So naturally, these are very big system design decisions. I hope you understand these examples. Okay? And that's why you will now see how many states in India are really going strong in their efforts to attract investments, especially in manufacturing plant location. All of us know that. Okay? Out of your general interest, just try to find out in the last 3 years how different states, it could be Tamil Nadu, it could be Karnataka, it could be Maharashtra, it could be Andhra Pradesh or Telangana or Gujarat or any of these states, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, how they are trying to attract investments into their state. Okay, so this is the location is a big part of the system design. Then of course comes the layout, etc. Then what else goes into system design? And I asked you a question: what is the basis for deciding upon the the parts of the system design. Particularly, let's say, how many machines? How will you justify an answer to that question? How many machines?
Sir, depending on the forecast, how many goods needed to be produced?
That was Avinash.
Avinash,
Okay.
sir.
Avinash, that answer is correct. Now, do you see the value of the forecast, Avinash? And since you are dealing with the long term, please note there is a single word which will capture a lot of what we want to say. In order to get into system design, do all of you agree the design team, the system design team has to have confidence in the forecast?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Because it is only based on that confidence in the forecast they're going ahead, because you don't want to make wrong system design decisions. And as I gave you just one example, if you look at Indian industrial history or manufacturing history, okay, or even corporate history, you will find many instances of either big blunders or some goofs being made in system design. Innumerable examples are there. You just have to keep your eyes wide open and check. And those examples will convince you of the value of the forecast. How confident can the system design team be with respect to the forecast, and how credible is the forecast? Okay. Now, in terms of organizing the forecast and having it made, what do you think could be the arrangements a company could make? Is my question clear? There is a company, let's say we are the company. What would be the sources of your forecast?
Review from
yeah, please go ahead.
Review from customer, market survey.
Market surveys, very good. Then
Based
So
on the
demand.
past data.
Pardon?
Based on the past data.
Yeah, which data, Mohan Raj? You're correct, but always be specific. Which data?
Sales data.
Sales data. Okay, fine.
So demand.
Okay, go ahead, Akhilesh. You were saying something.
Demand. So demand.
Demand forecast. But remember, Akhilesh bhai, we are talking about 2 to 24 months. Okay. So
Yes,
what
sir.
other information other than the data you have, the past data, as Mohan Raj mentioned now, over and above the past data, you need something, because the assumption that the future will be dictated by the past has limitations. Yeah, to some extent, the past does have a bearing or some implications for the future. We're not denying that. But you can't assume that the future will reflect the past completely. Many changes can happen. So what other types of information will go into the forecast, the making of the forecast?
Opinion survey.
Okay. So this is where, see, you must know, this is where people use methods like the Delphi method, DELPHI,
Yes, sir.
to have perspective planning. Have you heard of this term, the Delphi method?
Yes, sir.
Oh, sir.
Yeah. Can you share with me in what context you came across this term, please? Arvind and Rishabh?
Sir, this is a method of forecasting in which we took expert opinion.
Very
In
correct. Yeah.
In there is a panel of experts and
Absolutely. Very
sequential
good.
questions asked from them, and one by one they.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not going into the Delphi method. It's a very interesting method for evolving some sort of a consensus among experts. Okay. We're not going into the method. It's a very interesting method. And I would urge you guys to just Google and just read for 5 to 10 minutes and you will get a hang of what this Delphi method is. So a lot of these methods are also employed to develop perspectives. Remember, 2 to 10 years, you need perspectives, you need scenarios. Okay. And typically people talk of 3 types of scenarios: optimistic scenario, most likely scenario, and pessimistic scenario. Remember, we don't use the word average scenario. We use the term most likely scenario. Okay. So, and then they tried to get into the act of system design to ensure proper adaptability of the manufacturing system to changes, significant changes in the environment. Okay. So, this is what happens in, I mean, I'm giving you a bird's eye view, or even more than a bird's eye view, probably a satellite view, of system design. You got an, I think you have an idea now. So, even the decision, what should be the number of machines? What is the word we used for that earlier, a couple of lectures earlier? Do you recall? We used a particular word. The answer is in the diagram. Come on, be smart and look near the system design box.
Sir, can you repeat the question?
I said, when we say this is the total number of machines we need in the plant with a system design perspective, and these are total number of people we need, this is the power we need, these are the investments we need, all these things we do, we used a single word to represent all of that, of all those properties of the, or all those attributes of the manufacturing system. What was that word? I said the answer is in the diagram.
Sir, capacity.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dushyant. We are talking of manufacturing system capacity. As you can see from the diagram, we are talking of a maximum capacity at a particular point in time. Obviously, there are many things a company can do in 2 to 10 years, including acquiring additional manufacturing capacity, isn't it? After all, the company can invest in an existing manufacturing unit also. Different types of acquisition are there, starting from negotiated to forced acquisition also, isn't it? We're not getting into all that stuff. Those are very interesting areas in finance, strategy, and so on. So management is a very, very vast field. You cannot dive, I mean, you can technically dive wherever you want, but it's such a wonderful field, especially because of the excitement of uncertainty. There's so much to learn. We are looking at some very key aspects like system design. So system design will yield capacity information. That is the arrow you see going from system design to aggregate planning. Have you understood that? Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the maximum capacity information for a certain period of time. As I mentioned now, capacity can also be a slow cycle dynamic. I mean, you won't be adding every day or every year also. You may look at it, say, capacity decisions, say, once in 3 years, 2-3 years, and so on. That depends on the demand situation, altering the capacity. Okay. So system design will give you information on what is your manufacturing capacity, how many units per period of time also. So you can look at it from that perspective. So the long-term forecast will provide you a sufficient justification for your system design decisions, and out of the system design decisions, a very critical part is capacity information, manufacturing capacity. And then I hope all of you have understood, at least in a broad sense, what constitutes manufacturing system design or operations system design. Can I be confident that you've got a general understanding?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Good. Now you see, we come to the next box or the next concept in the operations system, the middle part, operations management, operations system, manufacturing system, production system. Often these terms are used interchangeably, although there are subtle differences. There are authors who make a subtle difference between operations, manufacturing, and production. I would say operations is a generic term. I would use it as a mother term. Manufacturing and production are subsets in operations. Okay, that's my view. Somebody may disagree, but that's okay. At a philosophical level, one can get into all those arguments. We're not talking of that. We need some firm mental models and definitions, so we'll do that. Okay? For our purposes, we will use the term operations as a generic term encompassing manufacturing, production, services. In fact, there are sharp differences between manufacturing and production also. You can check that. They are not treated identically by some authors, and they are big names in the field. Okay? But nevertheless, for our purposes, we will use them interchangeably. It's almost like colloquially, we interchange the terms force, pressure, and stress. Do you agree? Normal conversations, haven't we witnessed people interchanging the terms force, pressure, and stress? Have you noticed that or not?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but as an engineer, will you agree that force, pressure, and stress are the same?
No, sir.
No. So there is a thanks. That is where we have to understand the difference between the ordinary world where we use language in a certain colloquial way and a technical world where there is precise definition and precise meaning for these terms. In fact, if you notice, the units for pressure and stress will be identical, but we know the contexts are not the same, isn't it? So it is like that. So we will not quibble on the terms, we'll use them fairly interchangeably. Okay. So two sources of information get into aggregate planning. So the first one is the capacity information that comes from system design. By the way, these are logical arrangements, and physically you will notice that when a company establishes a plant, there will be a system design team or its equivalent. There's no doubt about it. There will be a team which will work on that, and it will be an interdisciplinary team. It will have technical experts, it will have finance experts, it will have marketing experts, it will have logistics experts, it will have strategy experts, isn't it? It may even have social experts, because location can mean a lot to a company. I'm sure you also know of a very big siting issue that continues in Tamil Nadu. I'm not naming, Mohan Raj would know that. It's a fairly big issue of a private company which is having serious operational issues. But again, we are not going to discuss who is right and who is wrong. That is not our objective at all. We are talking of this is happening, and that is true. Everybody knows that it is happening. It's even come on national TV. So now you understand, system design has serious implications. So sometimes people may miss seeing certain signals from the ground and make blunders. Okay, and meanwhile several hundred crores would have been invested. Please understand, what do you do? And those crores may have even not come from the reserves and surplus of a company, but would have been loans taken out from different banks. And you know what the complications are. We have already witnessed to how, as common citizens, we know what happens when loans are not repaid and people get out of the country also. So these are all integrated together. They're all blended together. You can't isolate something. Okay, you can have a black box model and isolate and start studying, but it carries limited value for us. Okay. So the second source for aggregate planning, source of information and justification, is the medium term forecast, 2 to 24 months. Now I would ask you a question. In what ways do you think the medium term forecast will contain specific information compared to the long term forecast? Please note, we are talking of 2 to 24 months. Use your intelligence and tell me, what differences would you expect in a medium term forecast compared to a long term forecast? Go ahead. Let me be specific and help you. In terms of demand information, what differences would you expect in a medium term forecast compared to a long term forecast? I'm sure you can reason, because the difference between a 2 to 10 years perspective and a 2 to 24 month what do you say, expectation. Come on, try, please. We have already discussed the necessary terms. Okay, I'll start with another very easy question. Will the uncertainty level in a medium term forecast be higher, equal to, or lower than the long term forecast? This you can answer.
So lower.
Very
Lower,
correct.
sir.
So very correct. So if the uncertainty level in a medium term forecast is lower, can you step back and understand why? Can you understand it, or can you try to reason out in terms of the customer base of the company and the supplier base of the company? I'm giving you clues so that you can get the answers that you already have inside you. I am assuring you, you know the answers, because they're not very intricate or very sophisticated. Doesn't involve very sophisticated logic. Even coarse logic would do, given your state of knowledge. I use two terms, customer base and supplier base. There are many other related things to differentiate between the long term and the medium term. I'm using these two, customer base and supplier base.
So depending on the current inventory and the
Go ahead.
and the increase in the goods produced by a company, like every month.
Okay, Avinash, I think you have to step back a bit. We used three terms, Avinash. Use them. I think you're probably thinking in the right space, but you have to be more precise. Okay, I'll restate the three terms: customer base, supplier base, uncertainty. Now you connect. Avinash, try. You connect the three. How much of uncertainty will you have in a medium term forecast compared to a long term forecast vis-a-vis or with respect to customer base?
So like we already have the data for our existing customers.
Very good. That's one good observation. Then
using that we can generate a prediction, as in how much our company will grow.
Absolutely. Part of your aggregate planning will be based on existing customer base. Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
Now what about the other part? Existing customer base is one thing. Then Avinash.
Also, sir, let's say that the company is growing, then we need to get in touch with more suppliers in order to
okay, you
get
went
more
into the supplier side. Okay, fine. Okay, you I think you're very close. Do you agree you can categorize customers into different types?
Yes,
okay.
Long-term customers.
In fact, literally speaking, you can categorize customer demand into different types. Can we do that or not?
Yes, sir.
Correct. So let us, I'll try to assist. The first type, we'll now use the term manufacturing orders. Orders received by a company. Okay. Let's look at what are the general possibilities. At one end of certainty or very high certainty, you have what are known as firm FIRM contracted orders, correct?
Yes, sir.
That means the orders are real, you have it on the book, and probably you even have, hopefully, some advance money paid by the customer. Okay, that's not very realistic, but I'm just exaggerating a bit. Okay. Usually credit, I mean, people do it on credit. Okay. The payments come a little later. But these are what are known as firm and contracted orders. Firm can also be interpreted in this sense as fixed, endorsed, contracted orders. Now, obviously, do you agree with such types of orders? You'll be looking at the capacity and how to utilize part of that capacity for fulfilling that order. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely correct. So looks like there is a delay between my telling you something and you're receiving it. Okay, these are very simple things you can answer almost immediately. In fact, I would even urge you, given all the discussions we've had in the course and the interactions, I think it's very important for you chaps to start anticipating what I'm going to say or ask. You must reach that level of anticipatory thinking. Okay, that's very important for students. You must be able to anticipate the teacher. Okay, this guy is going to talk this next, and so on. So that level of activation of your intelligence and focus and concentration must happen. It will be for your own good later in life. Okay, anticipatory management and anticipatory thinking are very important. Okay, so when I have capacity on the one side, I have a firm contracted order, and I'm talking of the running operations of the factory, of the company. That means my manufacturing system is already loaded. It's doing something. Agreed. Now I have a new order which is firm and contracted, endorsed. Okay, fixed, legally fixed, if you want to put it that way. I use the word contracted. So do you agree now I have to think something more than aggregate planning? Logically, I've not yet defined aggregate planning. We'll do that shortly. But I presume all of you have a notion in your head. So we'll work with that notion for now. Okay, we'll get into the definition shortly. Have you understood my question?
Yes, sir.
You have a firm contracted order on your hand. Your factory is already running its production cycles. This order has to be met. So you're going a little beyond aggregate planning, something much closer. Can you guess what that is? The answer is in the diagram.
Scheduling.
Absolutely. Who said that?
Sir, Dushyant.
Thank you. That was absolutely correct. But we're not talking of scheduling now, but I just wanted you to think ahead. Okay. So obviously, the kind of orders is going to dictate the type of orders, production orders or manufacturing orders, is going to dictate what the operation system is going to do at the highest level, from system design to the operational level, where we are coming to scheduling. In between, you have aggregate planning. Okay, so I talked of one type of order. Can you imagine what would be the next type of order with a little additional uncertainty? Small, chota sa uncertainty. One type I've already told you: fixed, endorsed, legitimized, contracted order. Add a little uncertainty and imagine what the next type of order could be. You have to use a little knowledge of psychology also here, little bit of customer psychology. Are you able to imagine?
It's like a contract that is between two contractors as of now, hasn't been
But
decided
contract
yet.
is not yet made, no? In the first type, the contract is signed by both parties.
Yes,
So
sir.
there
That
is
is
a
what
legal
I'm.
implication. Yeah, next one.
That is what I'm saying. The uncertainty is that we don't yet know the whom
Avinash,
to which
can you?
contractor.
Yeah, please go ahead a little bit. You are thinking in the right direction. Go ahead a little bit.
Sir, I mean, let's say there is a contract and there are two contractors who are bidding for that particular contract.
Okay.
So that is the uncertainty part.
Acha, you're talking of that. Okay, I was coming to much closer. Okay, in the next level of or type of order, okay, I'm
Verbal
using the
contract.
generic term order. Will the contract have been signed?
No, it's just verbal.
Huh?
No, it's just verbal, sir.
Very good. That means you're not talking of an order where, that's why I said customer psychology, where you, the producer, are able to have strong evidence and confidence that that order will come through. So you are in a state of negotiating the contract. Correct, Mohan Raj?
Yes, sir.
You're negotiating a contract. Avinash, you're discussing the contract and you have reached some advanced stage, and maybe you're thinking next week sign ho jayega. The contract will be through by next week because we are discussing very well. Correct? That means it is not a firm order, but it is what you call a pipeline order. We use the term pipeline. I hope you understand there's a difference between water that has come out of the pipe and water still in the pipe. Right? I mean, it's only a metaphor. The pipeline is a metaphor. Have you understood this? So the type of order is very, very, very important, as you understand. Now we have seen two types of orders: firm contracted orders, orders under negotiation for contract. Okay. Now, do you agree for the second type of order, orders under negotiation for contract, your quality of discussions in the manufacturing team, from system design to aggregate planning to scheduling, will differ a bit from the first type of order where you are getting into scheduling? Do you see the difference between the two? Are you able to understand the difference between these two?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now I want you to also understand, even in the firm contracted orders, things can go wrong. I want you to appreciate this. In fact, this is a great lesson in management. Always be skeptic. Start with the assumption that things will not work the way you think they will work. This is a very important lesson for you guys. Be skeptic. That doesn't mean become despondent. I mean, don't be absolutely pessimistic. That is not what I am suggesting. Be skeptic. You don't need to be pessimistic completely. But you must have that iota of a doubt in your mind. Agar, suppose something else happens, what do we do? So that gives you adaptability. Okay. And that is a dynamic capability. I hope you understand. That is a dynamic capability. Your operations adaptability, or agility, as they say. Okay, can you visualize what could go wrong even with a firm committed order, contracted order?
The payment doesn't come.
No, order pura nahi hua na, Avinash. It is there in your schedule. You have not yet completed the order. What could go wrong? By the way, you're not wrong. We'll come to that aspect which you touched upon. I'm talking of what could go wrong even with a contracted order that you're even yet to start manufacturing. But it's contracted. It's in your files. It's a firm order. You know, honi chahiye.
Design may get changed.
Very good. Scope changes. Ajay, very good. What else could go wrong? See, there are so many dimensions. That's why when I started off with you guys in the discussions on management, I focused a lot on uncertainty. Can you identify some sources of uncertainty which can mess up a firm contracted order? Imagine anyone. Any one source of uncertainty which can mess up a committed order.
So prices of raw material may increase.
Okay, that's an interesting thing. Sudden rise in prices of raw material. Okay, but I think it was Akhilesh who stated that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, do you agree, Akhilesh, that the contract should be adaptable now to take care of these exigencies?
Yes, sir.
See, now there is enough experience and maturity in organizations where the contract itself will feature clauses or items which will take care of these exigencies, you know, like price changes, factor price changes, okay? But there are many things that can happen. In fact, sometimes far beyond your imagination. It is like this, I'll just end with this part. It is like arranging a marriage in the family, okay? You even go through, in Tamil we say Nichayatartham. Mohan Raj would know this, isn't it? वो क्या कहते हैं मैं हिंदी में, where you the engagement का equivalent क्या है हिंदी में, engagement ceremony का?
Sagai.
Pardon, Arvind?
Sagai.
Sagai, okay. Am I right? Sagai, no?
Sir. Yes, sir.
So you have the engagement ceremony. It's like it's like a contract. Are you confident that because the engagement has taken place, the marriage will take place? Come on. Tell me, is it a guarantee?
No, sir.
No. Hundreds of uncertainties are there. You don't know what all can happen. And all you have to do is watch some Hindi or Tamil or Telugu or Kannada serials, you know. And I'm sure there are a number of TV serials in which there are a number of instances where things go haywire, you know. Of course, they are just imaginary stories. I'm just trying to convince you that even in the real world, just because you have a firm signed contract, that's not a guarantee that the whole thing is going to happen. You can be very confident of what's happening. So the single word that defines your decision making to a very large extent is confidence in the information that you have. So a firm contracted order gives you nearly 100% confidence. Okay, fine. We'll continue tomorrow. Bye, guys.